Last year, I made a white chocolate ganache using a strawberry Earl Grey tea, and I loved it so much, but I also don't always have access to strawberry Earl Grey tea, so I wanted to take a lot of those same elements, but turn it into something that's a little bit more universal and have some different textures and other elements going on here. So today I'm making a strawberry jam for the center. I really like to use frozen fruit, and then while it's still frozen, I dump in my sugar and then just leave this on my counter, honestly, like for the rest of the day. Allow that to macerate completely, or you could do this overnight, just stick it into your refrigerator. And then once the fruit is more at like a room temperature consistency, it's not frozen anymore, it's released all of those juices, that's when I like to put it into my saucepan, bring this up to a hearty boil, and simmer it until it becomes jam. Yes, I am a professionally trained pastry chef. I went to pastry school. I'm fully qualified to work in kitchens. I have a lot of experience, both working for other people and working for myself. I have not a lot of knowledge about jam, and so I do not know. I know some people will ask me like, what's the temperature and how long did this take? I really don't usually monitor those things. I just boil this fruit and sugar until it looks like jam, then I take it right off the heat. So yep, that's my advice. Just continue boiling this. Maybe get in there with a spoon or a fork to help mush those strawberries just a little bit. It will look super juicy and bubbly. Your kitchen will smell amazing. Then those strawberries are going to start breaking down. The liquid is going to be evaporating, and slowly but surely this is going to go from looking like sugar water with strawberries floating in it into like a jam. As you can see here, honestly, it looks like jam. You should be able to scrape your spoon around and slightly see the bottom of the pan. It should look thick. There shouldn't be a lot of like runny, syrupy juice in there. Once it looks like this, take it off the heat, transfer it to another container, slap some plastic wrap on there, and stick it into your fridge to cool completely while we start working on the other elements. As I mentioned, I'm trying to mimic a strawberry Earl Grey white chocolate kind of flavor, so the other things I'm going to do, I want to make an Earl Grey white chocolate buttercream. So the buttercream I'm making right before I want to fill my macaron shells. I've got some pretty normal things. I'm making a Swiss meringue today. Egg whites, sugar, butter. I've got a little bit of white chocolate to pour in there, vanilla, and then also I've got some Earl Grey tea. This was very experimental. I was very happy with the result. You do not need to do exactly what I'm doing here. I don't think I've completely perfected this yet, but it was very fun, and I do recommend it. Like, obviously I'm sharing this recipe with you. It was very enjoyable. But I decided to try to like infuse the Earl Grey into my egg whites because this is going into a double boiler. And so yeah, the egg whites, sugar, tea, vanilla is all in my double boiler. I am going to heat this up until it is hot, until the sugar has dissolved, until the egg whites are looking a lot looser. Right now it's pretty gloppy and kind of a yellowish tinge to it, and then I want it to be a lot more translucent. So my goal here was, as this is heating up, to allow the tea flavor to really infuse in there, and then when I go to put this into my KitchenAid to whip the meringue for my Swiss meringue buttercream, I'm just straining it through my fine mesh sieve. You can use, cheesecloth or whatever. Some of the very tiny little bits of tea were left in the egg white mixture, and for me that was totally fine. If that is really worrisome to you, you could put the tea in like a tea bag or something like that, but just know that with the reduction in the surface area, you might have not quite as strong of a flavor as if you use this method. So anyway, I've got this like tea egg white sugar mixture, and I'm just cranking this up to kind of a medium-high speed. Right now that egg white mixture is quite hot. All the sugar has completely dissolved, and what I want this to do as the temperature is cooling down, I want this to whip into a really nice meringue. I want it to be nice and light and fluffy. Because this is a buttercream, I'm not super worried about, a perfectly stiff peak or something like that. But if we start adding in our butter when it's still hot or when it's still like a soft peak or something, you're not going to get the best buttercream result in the end. So you do want this to be more like it's just above room temperature or room temperature, and you want this to be looking really nice and light and fluffy, like a really good strong meringue. Then I'm going to start adding in the butter, like 1 cube at a time. As I mentioned, all of my buttercream related videos, it is so important to use room temperature butter. And while in ganaches, I often add in a bit of salt. With a buttercream, you really don't ever want to even consider using salted butter. Always, always, always go for unsalted butter, and always, always, especially with buttercream, go for a room temperature butter. If you've forgotten to leave your butter out for a couple hours, make sure to very, very, very slowly and gently warm it, either by using a bit of warm water or your microwave it for like 5 seconds at a time. Be super careful. You do not want to be adding melted butter into your buttercream. So now that it looks like I've got a really nice whipped meringue going here, it is looking really white and fluffy. You can see the tracks being left by the whisk every time it's going around. I like to reduce the speed a bit, so I was kind of on a medium high, now I'm more on a medium low, so that the butter just doesn't go flying out everywhere. As I mentioned, I'm going to add the butter in a little bit at a time, then I'm going to leave it to completely whip and make sure everything is nice and homogenous before I add in the chocolate, which I just have melting. I'm using my microwave, but you can use a double boiler for that as well. If you want to leave out the white chocolate element, you absolutely can. It is not necessary. I think it's a really, really nice pairing with the Earl Grey, with the buttercream, with the strawberry jam especially. But that is completely up to you and your palate, what your taste preferences are. Depending on the kind of butter you are using, this varies a lot depending on the brand, where you are living maybe as well. I know I have had very different access to butter in Korea versus the US versus France. And so the quantities that work for me, and I make my recipes mostly in Minnesota, and like the brands that I'm using and all of that, it might require more or less butter for you when you're making a buttercream. So don't force it, keep an eye on it, and this is why you want to add in your butter a little bit on the slower side, so you can be looking for what I'm seeing right here. Is the buttercream coming together? Do I need to keep adding butter? Should I leave a little bit out? Does my buttercream need more? I will caution you though, if you get to the point where you've added in all of the butter and you're like, it doesn't look like buttercream yet, keep whipping. And if after 5 minutes it still doesn't look like buttercream, then definitely you can go in and add a little bit more if you feel like you need to. Now I'm adding in that melted white chocolate. Make sure it's not too hot. You obviously want it to still be melted. You don't want to add in solid white chocolate, but if it is too hot, it could melt all of your hard work and that butter. Then after everything is incorporated, I am switching over to a paddle attachment. This really helps to smooth out your buttercream no matter what recipe you are using. It is a really fantastic and simple technique that you can use basically no matter what size batch you are making. Just turn your mixer down to like stir or speed 1, maybe 2, but like the lower the better, and then just leave it for like 5 to 20 minutes and you will end up with a really creamy, silky, smooth, beautiful buttercream, I promise. The last thing I did want to show you is that with these macarons, I went with the blue macaron shell, and it's just my regular French method. Everything is very normal. I think this was mostly just blueberry from the Sugar Art Master Elite series. But I love decorating my shells, especially that have a little bit of tea in there, with a tiny little sprinkle of powdered tea leaves. If you are not a super tea fan, you can obviously feel free to leave this off of your macaron shells, but I think it's a really fun way to just give a little hint at what's inside while giving a little bit of decoration. So now I've got that Earl Grey white chocolate Swiss meringue buttercream that I'm piping with a French star tip just around the outside, and then I'm going to go in the inside and just pipe that completely cooled down strawberry jam. So as far as the timing on all of this stuff, I would say the jam I would recommend making at least the night before, otherwise like the day before, 2 days before, 3 days before, also fine. For the buttercream, I really like to make that right before I use it just to make sure it's like the creamiest it possibly can be. And the macaron shells, you can make them and bake them the morning of, the night before, whatever, whenever you want to use them. Just make sure that when you are going to fill all of this stuff that your jam is completely cold, your shells are also not hot, they're not like fresh out of the oven. I'm going to sandwich all of these macaron shells and then get them into my refrigerator to completely mature. If you're not eating your macarons right away, make sure to get them into your freezer in a completely airtight container so they have a longer shelf life. I really hope you enjoyed this recipe. I had so much fun playing around with this idea of infusing tea into my Swiss meringue buttercream egg whites. It was just a lot of fun, and I loved pairing that really creamy, sweet, light Swiss meringue buttercream with the strawberry jam. I just felt like it paired so well together. All right, thanks for sticking around till the end. If you give this a try, make sure to tag me on Instagram at MaddieBrame. Otherwise, make sure to subscribe down below here so you don't miss out on any of my future recipes. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!